So I'm Andrea Richardson. As some of you probably who are listening will know, I finished working in Leeds at the end of last year. After about 26 years of working in early years, family support, some SEND work, a lot of parent partnership work, and various other things as well, actually, by the end of my time there. And as Stefan started to talk about 2.5 years ago, we chose in Leeds to invest in the 50 things to do before you're 5 app. And I'm going to talk about how Leeds, as a large northern local authority, did that. But first of all, I just wanted to reflect on why now, why you might want to invest time and money at what is a really unusual moment in anybody's mind, isn't it? And obviously every place is different. So I've literally just finished working at Leeds, but every single local authority is different. Every health authority is different. Every school is different. You know, the whole world is looking at a slightly different perspective. But what I would like to do is just kind of reflect on what we actually know and probably what we share together. And that is that we know that lots of our young children have had a disrupted early education experience over the last 12 months. It's been different. It's been different. Many, definitely many, will have experienced a level of upset, a level of bereavement. Lots will be experiencing greater poverty and deprivation, and we can be clear on that. And some children will be more neglected and at risk of harm than before the pandemic started. And I think those are all kind of given wherever you are, whichever agency you're working in. But also don't forget, some children, and actually a lot of children, will have been able to spend more lovely, good quality time with parents and carers and their families in a way that actually they might not have done if we hadn't been in the middle of a pandemic. So just with that context, I'm going to move into, you know, the fact that having a good app that's free to parents was co-produced with parents and with children, of course, and with outstanding early years educators at St Edmunds. You know, all those things together feel that this might potentially be a good way to go, actually. So we have to recognise, I think, as local authorities, you will be focusing your resources on your most vulnerable children at this time. You're going to have to, there is no escaping from that. Now isn't the time of plenty. It isn't time where people will have lots of money or lots of resources. And I think we're all very realistic in that. So with that context, for me, interestingly, at this time, unpredicted, you know, very, very unusual, having a good app that gives accessible quality ideas for parents, but also for early educators, for social workers, for health visitors, for support workers, something that gives you an aspect of a shared conversation around positive activities, nice things to do, free things to do, cheap things to do even. You know, that thing that gives you an idea of, have you thought about doing this? Because it would be really nice. Could actually be quite a helpful thing at this moment in time. So I'm going to tell you about Leeds. In 2015, so a few years ago now, we set up a strategic partnership, very usual for local authorities, let's be honest, led by public health and involving children's services, CCG, public health, voluntary sector groups, so all agencies who were involved in supporting families with young children, educating families with young children. They set out a best start strategy. Now, the best start strategy was primarily focused on pre-birth up to 2 years, as many authorities did at the time. It was a strategy that was needs and population focused. So it was about Leeds, it was about the families of Leeds, what their needs were. And it was very much looking at a place-based community type response, because our experience as a local authority is, you know, you engage with your community and you bring forward that motivation and engagement, and you've got your families at the heart of what you're trying to do. So obviously, local authority talk, we jointly commissioned and further developed a whole range of good restorative programs and interventions that we felt kind of held the family and child at the heart. Things that you will all be familiar with for sure. Breastfeeding support, baby cafes, Henry, PBB, Preparation Birth Beyond, Baby Steps, Incredible Babies. There's a whole host of things that we kind of layered up together and delivered citywide. And this is the important bit, we invested time and resource into something called Best Beginnings, which has a Baby Buddy app. Now, some of you may be familiar with this. If you're not, go and have a look at it. It's a pre-postnatal app recommended by Health, and it's used in a lot of authorities now. Now, by using that in Leeds for those mums and families, we had some really encouraging results around uptake of using an app and the value of an app. And we were really keen, once we'd seen that, with, you know, lots of work around it, what we wanted to do was extend the reach of that. So all those families that had kind of signed into that, extend the reach of that into preschool development and experiences. So kind of take those families through on a pathway. Now, at Leeds, we researched into what was available. We considered developing our own app. You know, we all think it must be dead easy to devise an app. I'm sure Stefan sat at the other end of this going, you know, it's not, Andrea, no, it's not. So we came across St Edmunds and Frog, who were working together on what seemed to be on something that seemed to be just really what we were looking for. Now, financially, at that time, so 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, we shared the cost between myself as head of early years and our school improvement kind of service. So we spread the cost between us. We didn't get real money from Public Health or CCG, but what we did get was kind of support in kind, and obviously they'd invested in other things, so we invested in this. And everybody was signed up to the kind of support and delivery. So, cut a long story short, many of you here will be familiar with the ins and outs of local authorities, getting permission, communication strategies, political support, all those things, all those agreements were required and they were secured. Now, in terms of taking on the app and making it your own, which is one of the really strong selling points, I think, of this, we had a fab graduate trainee. So somebody who'd just come into work in Leeds, was enthusiastic, was young, pardon me, and knew a lot about IT, and they just kind of Leedsified the app for us, made it something that felt very familiar for our families. So I think my timings are right, they might be slightly out. I think by November 2019, we'd done a lot of the work, a lot of the groundwork, a lot of awareness raising with professionals, and we launched the app at our Baby Week, because annually we have a week in the city that celebrates the birth of babies. And I know a lot of other cities are developing that as well. So we launched it in 2019 Baby Week. And then we literally layered the app across all our existing systems. Now, I know, because I worked in a local authority, I can hear people going, we haven't got the capacity to do that. Don't you know how busy we are? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, of course you are. And what we did in Leeds 2.5 years ago, and actually I'll come on to talk a little bit more about what we did last year, is just kind of use this, which is a tool to work with the systems that we already had in place. So as I said, we launched the app through Baby Week. That was with professionals and parents. One of the key learning from working with the Baby Buddy app was having professionals who understood and were using the tool, as it were. So Baby Week was helpful in getting professionals to understand what it was we were looking at. And that's midwives, that's health visitors, that's social workers, that was schools, parents, obviously, but a lot of people who were working with those families. Our child-friendly Leeds team, because we had one of those in Leeds, rare for us, began tweeting messages about the app. So that kind of weekly tweeting out to whoever cares to listen. We had an early years improvement team, so a team of consultants who worked with our private, well, all of our providers, from childminders through to private, through to school, early years settings. So they shared the app across all of those settings. And actually some of the schools within that were part of a funded pilot. I think about 25 primary schools were already working on that and kind of properly modelling that up and what it might look like in schools. Leeds Local Authority has a lot of children's centres still, 57 children's centres, and the Little Owls nurseries, 29 local authority run nurseries. So obviously staff in there were made aware, had staff meetings about the app and just knew about it. There's a whole list of things which, you know, for yourselves, if you are thinking about this, you go, do you know what, we could use that to work with this that we already have going. And if anybody any of you want to talk to me about that, I'm more than happy to answer questions here or even afterwards. Another nice thing, we use the 50 Things card pack, which if Christian had got on, he would have showed you. It's a lovely little product which has cards, which are really popular actually with families, and we gave that away with our baby box promotion. So we were giving away baby boxes for about 2 years. Things like we work really closely with health visitors in the children's centres in Leeds, and the health visitors put bookmarks with the 50 Things app in their red book, so every red book had some kind of notification. And libraries, in the last probably 18 months, libraries really came on board with this, and it was just beginning to kind of roll. And then, you know, there we were in March 2020. Lockdown came suddenly. The whole world took a step back. Interestingly, and in some ways, this is probably key for you today. That's where the 50 Things app really came into its own for me. What we had was a whole load of professionals who were aware of it, some parents who were starting to use it, social workers who'd been trained in maybe using the app, and suddenly looking for new and different ways to communicate with parents. Now, what we found was the materials within the app, within the product, were perfect actually for online education systems, online communications. So things like whichever communication or online system you're using with parents. My own nurseries use Tapestry, and they started to put the ideas and the activities on a weekly message out to parents, and that was kind of coming back with comments back about what children had done. So perfect for that kind of online early education. Children's Centre started to use it in the Facebook pages, so literally activity of the week with maybe a member of staff reading a nice story as part of the resource. And in fact, we had some really fantastic examples of staff coming through and doing things like signed activities or doing songs and things, some really creative things that were really very engaging for children and for the families as well. One of the big ones actually for Leeds in July and August, as local authorities, you'll know the DWP data about eligible 2-year-olds for early education comes through with regularity, and we're all under pressure. Middle of a pandemic, not the best time to provide free places for all eligible 2-year-olds. And clearly a lot of places for those young children were limited or even not available, or parents didn't want to take them up. So we actually used the 50 Things. Our teacher team put together a pack, and the outreach workers from the children's centres delivered them to, and our list was like over 2,000 families were in receipt of that offer. So they actually took the materials, they put them into a pack, and they door knocked every one of those families and actually took them in, had a little bit of a conversation, obviously COVID safe, through a window over the doorstep. But they got quite a lot of traction through that, interestingly. And again, it's that shared communication, shared language across the city, across different professionals. In terms of impact, I mean, in some ways, in Leeds, we're still quite early in terms of analysing the impact for the city of Leeds. And what we know as local authorities is you're only as good as your data, really, aren't you? I would say Frog, and this is another real benefit from the app, actually, over the last couple of years, Frog have been working to develop the analytics around the app, and actually it's pretty good now. So you've got some really kind of strong, up-to-date analytics about who's using it, what your unique logins are, which activities families are using, postcode location on that. So what that gives you is obviously that fantastic data, which I know our public health people love, about who's using it, what are they using, and why are they using it. So you can start as a local authority to drill down into why have a lot of parents started to use the app in that area. Is it something that somebody is doing? Why are they not using it in that area? What can we do to enhance the work? What can we kind of learn from other areas, or even other sectors? You know, different sectors of early education are getting more impact in the areas that we're working in. So there's a lot of ground still to cover on that to understand what it looks like. And I think Wakefield might be talking a little bit more about that. What I would say is obviously any app is dependent on your people. So nothing's a panacea, is it? You can't kind of pick something off the shelf and go, this is going to change the world. It's dependent on your people. You won't get the impact unless your people are signed up to it, unless you've got some kind of, whatever you call it, champions network or lead people or whatever. And it needs some kind of development to do that. But in terms of, I was just going to say, just in terms of take up, I remember I left Leeds at the end of last year, so we were quite early in terms of numbers. But in Leeds last year, we had, in October, I think we had about 3,500 families using the app. So that was in October. So the 3,500 families in Leeds is about 8% of the total under 5s population. So it's not huge, not yet, but it's there to be built on, and it gives you a really kind of practical scaffold for kind of enhancing that across the city.
And terrible jaws. I have terrible teeth. And terrible teeth.
Good mixing, mix. Mama, bubble. Wow. Bubble. Mix.
Come on, pie. Big aces. And big brown bear.
And what happened?
And a big brown bear.
Tell Molly.
Big brown mouse.
Wow, that was a big jump.
Ooh. Shall we do something? Oh, we could splash. Put our hand in. We're mixing.